The rain hammered against the glass walls of St. Aurora Hospital, turning Manhattan's skyline into a smear of silver and red. Sirens screamed somewhere below, bouncing off wet concrete and steel. On the high-risk maternity floor, nurses moved with the sharp, practiced urgency of people who knew that minutes could mean lives. Their sneakers whispered across the polished linoleum as monitors beeped in anxious rhythm. In Operating Theater 3, Lila Morgan lay on a gurney under the harsh white lights, skin the color of paper. Her hospital gown clung to her, damp with sweat. 3 separate fetal monitors flickered beside her, each labeled in black marker: Baby A, Baby B, Baby C. Their tiny heartbeats fluttered across the screens like uncertain Morse code. "Blood pressure's dropping again," one nurse muttered. "She's too weak," another replied. "We should have had her in here days ago." Lila fought to keep her eyes open. Her fingers trembled as she clutched the thin blanket, knuckles white. For months she had pushed her body past breaking point, hiding, running, working, just to keep the 3 lives inside her safe. Now each contraction felt like a fist closing around her lungs. "Stay with us, Lila," a nurse whispered, leaning close and squeezing her hand. "We're almost there. You just hold on, okay?" Lila tried to answer, but her tongue felt heavy, her throat raw from dry breathing. The overhead lights blurred into halos. For a moment, all she could hear was the ragged echo of her own heartbeat and the soft, frantic patter of 3 much smaller ones. Downstairs, the glass entrance doors exploded open with a crash that made the receptionist flinch. A tall man in a rain-soaked designer coat strode into the lobby like a storm given human shape. Water dripped from the cuffs onto the spotless tile. His dark hair was slicked back, but the rain had broken its perfect shape. His jaw was clenched so hard a muscle throbbed in his cheek. Damon Cross slammed a stack of papers onto the reception counter. "Where is she?" he snarled. "Lila Morgan, my wife." The receptionist skimmed the screen, fingers hovering nervously over the keyboard. "Sir, Miss Morgan is listed as single. There's no spouse on her file. I can't—" "I don't care what she listed," Damon hissed, both palms slapping the counter so hard the pens rattled. "Legally, she's still my wife. I want access to her room. Now." People sitting in the waiting area looked up. Conversations faltered. The security guard near the elevator straightened. "Sir, you need to lower your voice," the receptionist said carefully. "This is a maternity hospital. I can only share information with authorized contacts and—" Damon leaned forward, eyes blazing with something too sharp to be concerned. "Authorized?" he spat. "I paid for her life for years. I made her. I'm the only one with the right to know what's happening to her." 2 security guards approached, hands raised in a placating gesture. "Mr. Cross, Damon Cross!" He jerked his chin toward the ceiling. "And if she's up there with him, you're going to regret standing in my way." Not worry, not love. The thing burning in his gaze was uglier: wounded pride, jealousy, and a deep, hollow terror of losing control. Especially to another man. Especially to a richer man. High above the chaos of the lobby, in a private consultation room just off the surgical wing, Cassian Hale stood at a stainless steel counter signing emergency consent forms with a hand that wouldn't stop shaking. Ink blotted under the tip of his Mont Blanc pen. He cursed under his breath, wiped his palm on his shirt, and tried again. The billionaire whose name could move markets with a single quote, whose companies stretched across continents, could not keep his signature straight on a form that decided life and death for 4 people he loved more than every deal he had ever closed. "How bad is it?" he asked, voice rough. The obstetrician glanced at the chart. "Her blood pressure is dangerously low. The babies are premature, but they're fighting. We don't have much time. We need to deliver now." "Is she stable enough?" "She's on the edge," the doctor admitted. "We're managing her vitals, but this pregnancy has taken everything out of her. If we don't move, we risk losing baby B and her." Cassian dragged a hand through his rain-damp hair and swallowed hard. "Then do whatever you have to do," he said. "Save her. Save them." He handed back the clipboard. The metal frame rattled faintly in his grip. As he stepped into the corridor, the elevator at the far end chimed. The door slid open with soft precision. Damon Cross stepped out, For a heartbeat, the hallway turned to ice. Their eyes locked, rage meeting something much colder. Cassian had never met Damon in person, but he had seen his shadow in every bruise Lila hid behind long sleeves, in every flinch when someone raised their voice, in every night she woke shaking from dreams she wouldn't describe. Now that shadow stood in front of him, breathing, furious, entitled. Two guards at Cassian's back instinctively spread out, forming a subtle barrier as Damon strode closer, rain still dripping from his shoulders. "You," Damon said with a crooked smile, lifting the papers he'd brought as if they were a weapon. "Cassian Hale, the great man himself." Cassian didn't move. "You have no right to be up here." "I have every right." Damon waved the papers. "Marriage certificate, shared address, 10 years together. You think you can keep me from her? She's mine. She always will be." Cassian stepped forward, blocking the hallway that led directly to the operating suite doors. "Lila is not property," he said quietly. "Not yours. Not anyone's. You will never lay a hand on her again." Damon's eyes narrowed. Big words from a man who bought himself a hero narrative. "You think having money lets you steal another man's wife and children?" "The only thing I took from you," Cassian replied, voice like glass, "was a woman you tried to break and the family you never deserved." Security moved in, palms open, trying to herd Damon back toward the elevator. For a second, it seemed he might retreat. Then he shoved past them with a snarl, shoulder slamming into Cassian's chest. "I'm not asking," Damon spat. "I'm going to see my wife." He lunged down the corridor. The guards grabbed for him and missed. His shoes slapped against the polished floor as he sprinted toward the double doors of the surgical wing. A red light glowed above them. In use. "Stop!" "All right," one of the nurses shouted. Damon ignored her, grabbed the handle and yanked the door open. The cold, sterile air of the operating theater spilled into the hallway. Damon froze at the threshold. Lila lay on the operating table, draped in blue sheets from chest to ankle, her face turned to the side, eyes half closed, lips whispering something he couldn't hear. Nurses circled her in practiced motion. The surgeon stood focused between the drapes. The triplets' heartbeats spilled out in overlapping beeps. She wasn't alone. Cassian stood at her head in blue scrubs and cap, gloved hand wrapped around hers. His thumb moved in small circles against her palm, his face etched with a tenderness Damon had never worn in 10 years by her side. The sight cracked something open inside Damon Cross. Every illusion he had carefully arranged, that she was waiting for him, that she was still his to claim, that he could walk in and take control again, shattered under the blistering truth of what he saw. She had already built a life without him. Long before Lila Morgan lay on an operating table fighting for her life and the lives of 3 tiny strangers who already owned her heart, she had been the kind of woman people looked past without realizing it. Soft-spoken, steady-handed, the NICU nurse who cradled 2-pound newborns as if they were spun from porcelain and breath. The woman who stayed after her shift to sit with mothers too terrified to sleep. The one who murmured, "One more day, closer to home," while parents stared through incubator glass with hollow eyes. Her world used to be small, humid hospital rooms, pastel blankets, whiteboards covered in feeding schedules and weight gains measured in grams, not pounds. She didn't have rooftop cocktail photos or designer dresses, but she had something else. She had purpose. Back then, before Damon, before Cassian, before St. Aurora's fluorescent lights turned her skin ghost pale, Lila's evenings were simple. She walked home from the hospital in her scrubs, the smell of antiseptic still clinging to her hair. She stopped at the corner deli for soup, sometimes a cupcake if she'd handled a particularly hard case. On her days off, she slept, did laundry, and watched documentaries about places she never had time or money to visit. People often mistook her gentleness for naivety. They didn't know it came from watching tiny chests rise and fall under oxygen hoods, knowing that one infection, one bad night, one missed medication could tip a fragile balance. When you lived your life on the edge of life and death, you learned to speak softly, to move carefully, to carry your strength quietly. She met Damon Cross in a world she did not belong to, a charity gala at the Helios Hotel. She was only there because the hospital was short-staffed on part-time help, and she'd agreed to work one more side job, refilling water pitchers and carrying champagne trays for the same donors whose names appeared on the NICU's bronze plaque. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and sequined gowns. A string quartet played music Lila couldn't name. Men in tuxedos laughed too loudly, their voices echoing against imported marble. Halfway through the night, her hands shook from exhaustion. While refilling glasses at a corner table, she misjudged the angle. A cascade of icy water spilled over the white linen, splashing onto an expensive suit. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," Lila stammered, grabbing napkins, heart pounding. The man in the suit looked down, then up at her face. He didn't snap. He laughed. "It's just water," he said with an easy grin, taking the napkins from her hands. "Don't worry about it." He had the kind of practiced charm that made people lean in without realizing it. Dark hair, polished shoes, cufflinks that flashed in the ballroom light. The kind of man who moved like he owned whatever room he was in. "I'm Damon," he said, "and you look like you've worked 3 shifts in a row. Sit down before you pass out." "I can't," Lila said quickly. "I'm on the clock." He tilted his head. "Hospital staff, right? You've got that tired hero look." She smiled despite herself. "NICU nurse." He made a low whistle. "So you save the smallest people in the building, and they pay you in cafeteria coffee and overtime. That's criminal." His gaze swept over her plain black server dress, the cheap black flats she'd bought on sale. "You deserve better than this, than scrubs and night shifts and carrying water for people who don't even see you." He said it like a compliment, like a promise. He said all the things lonely, overworked women with too many responsibilities and not enough time to date secretly wanted to hear. What Lila didn't know that night, standing under chandeliers with a damp tray in her hands, was that some men build cages out of praise. They study the places you feel small, then offer themselves as the solution. Their romance moved fast, too fast. Within 4 months, she had boxes stacked in the hallway of his glass-walled Tribeca condo. Within 6, she'd given up her tiny shared apartment in Queens and moved in with him to save money. Within a year, Lila Morgan, NICU nurse, overtime queen, queen of late-night charting, had turned in her badge. Damon insisted. "You don't have to work anymore," he told her, arms wrapped around her waist from behind while she washed dishes in his imported stone sink. "My bonus is enough for both of us. You've done enough for other people. Let me take care of you now." It sounded sweet, protective, a reward. She didn't realize it was the first lock sliding into place. At first, she told herself she was overreacting when he suggested which coworkers were good influences and which ones filled her head with negativity. She stopped answering texts from nurses who invited her out. She muted the group chat she used to live in. It was just easier to avoid fights. She told herself it was normal when he bristled at the idea of her working nights again. "Why would you want to go back to that chaos?" he'd ask, voice light but eyes sharp. "You have a beautiful home, a partner who provides. Most women would kill for this. Are you really that ungrateful?" The marble floors, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the walk-in closet he proudly called hers. Everything looked expensive, curated, aspirational. Everything looked like success. Everything except the tightness in her chest that never fully left. When she hesitated about having a baby right away, "Maybe after we stabilize a bit more, after I'm used to not working." His patience vanished. "What do you do all day that's so exhausting?" Damon snapped. "You shop, you decorate, you work out. You have one job now, Lila. Be here. Be beautiful. Be available. Why is that so hard?" When she finally did get pregnant, hope bloomed quietly inside her. Maybe this would change things. Maybe a child would soften his edges, give her back some purpose he couldn't fully control. Instead, the first thing he did was schedule an appointment at a clinic she had never set foot in before. "The timing isn't right," he murmured in the car, his hand heavy on her knee. "I just got the promotion. There's a restructure coming. A baby will complicate things. We'll try again later, when it's convenient." Convenient. As if the life inside her was a calendar event to be dragged and dropped. She sat in that clinic waiting room with her hands laced tightly over her belly, staring at a wall of motivational posters, talking about choices and freedom and responsibility. Damon filled out forms, tapping his pen impatiently. Her name looked wrong next to the box he'd checked. Procedure, elective termination. She never forgot the taste in her mouth when she finally stood, fingers numb, and walked out without signing anything. Damon didn't yell. He did something worse. He spent 3 days not speaking to her at all, moving around the penthouse like she was a ghost. When she finally broke and begged him to talk, he delivered his verdict quietly. "You just ruined everything," he said. "My expansion plans, my reputation, our life. You'll regret this, Lila. I promise you will." She lost the pregnancy a week later from stress and complications. He did not hold her hand in the hospital. He did not sit awake through the night listening to the empty ache in her voice. He left early to make a breakfast meeting, telling her to rest up so she could be pleasant when he brought clients over later that week. Something in her cracked that day and never healed. When she finally left him, no dramatic fight, no packed moving truck. She wore the first pair of shoes she found, stuffed a few clothes into a backpack, and walked out with her heart pounding so loud she thought the doorman would hear it. She expected screaming, threats, maybe even tears. Instead, Damon retaliated the way powerful men often do when they want to hurt someone without getting their hands dirty. He picked up his phone. The whispers started slowly. A concerned husband calling Lila's old department head to mention she'd been having episodes before she quit. A friend reaching out to say she'd struggled emotionally and might not be safe around critical patients. A quiet suggestion to HR that maybe rehiring her would be too much of a liability. Job interviews vanished before they started. Emails went unanswered. A recruiter who had seemed enthusiastic last week suddenly couldn't find her CV. She moved into a cramped sublet in Washington Heights with a radiator that hissed all night and a view of a brick wall. She worked odd jobs, event setup, temp reception, anything that didn't require references. She walked with her hood up, careful not to pass any place she might run into him. Every day felt like sprinting down a hallway with the lights flickering behind her. Then one winter night, her body finally refused to keep running. She was working yet another corporate tech conference at a midtown hotel, setting up signage, checking name tags, answering questions for men who treated her like she was furniture. She hadn't eaten properly in days. Her back ached. Her legs shook. She remembered the moment the room tilted. The projector light flared too bright, and the sounds around her, laughter, microphone feedback, clinking glasses, blurred into a single roar, then nothing. When consciousness seeped back in, the first sensation was the cool stiffness of hospital sheets beneath her fingers. The second was the steady beep of machinery. The third was a voice she didn't recognize, rich and low, saying her name like an apology. "Lila." She blinked against the white ceiling. A face hovered into focus above her. Cassian Hale, not the version she had seen on magazine covers, standing beside luxury cars and glass towers, not the curated image from finance interviews. He looked tired, hair slightly disheveled, dark circles under his eyes, no cameras, no spotlight, just a man sitting in an uncomfortable chair at her bedside, his large hands folded, his gaze raw with a grief he wasn't bothering to hide. "You stayed," she croaked, throat dry. He nodded. "You collapsed at the conference. They paged the on-site medical team. When they wheeled you out, I recognized you." "Recognized me?" she whispered, confused. His jaw worked. "You were one of the nurses in the NICU. When my wife Lydia was dying. The night they said she wouldn't make it, I remember. You were there. You were the only one who stayed when visiting hours ended. You held her hand when I couldn't because I—" His voice broke. He swallowed. "You read to her from that awful mystery novel she loved. You talked to her like she could hear every word." Lila stared at him, stunned. The faces of the families she'd helped over the years blurred together. But she remembered a woman with soft brown hair, an oxygen mask, and a husband who never left the waiting room couch. "I was just doing my job," she said quietly. "To you, maybe," Cassian replied. "To me, you kept my world from collapsing a little faster. I've been trying to find you for years." He said it simply, like a statement of fact. No pity, no strings. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, someone looked at her without suspicion, without judgment, without that quiet calculation of what they could take from her. She didn't know. lying there with an IV in her arm and hospital tape itching her skin, that this moment, a billionaire sitting at the bedside of a woman the world had nearly erased, would be the first tiny turn in a chain of events that would lead her back to St. Aurora under far more dangerous circumstances. Back to 3 heartbeats on a monitor. Back to 2 men in a hospital hallway. Back to the night Damon Cross would storm into a hospital convinced he still owned her, and find that the woman he tried to break had built a life bigger than his imagination, and that this time, she wasn't the one who should be afraid. By the time the first snow of December dusted Manhattan in white, Naomi Hart had built something that almost resembled a life again. It wasn't glamorous. Her apartment in Washington Heights was a cramped walk-up where the radiator hissed louder than the neighbor's TV and the bedroom window looked out over a fire escape instead of a skyline. The rent swallowed most of her paycheck. The rest went to student loans, therapy bills, and the occasional cheap takeout on nights she was too exhausted to cook. But it was hers. No one else's name on the lease. No key turning in the lock at midnight. No man standing in the doorway with accusations on his lips and control in his eyes. In the mornings, Naomi rode the subway downtown with a thrift store tote bag, surrounded by commuters in expensive coats and earbuds. Her ID badge clipped neatly to her blazer. Cross Life Foundation Project Coordinator. Neonatal Health Initiatives. The foundation's offices sat in a glass tower on Park Avenue, all white marble floors and quiet elevators that moved like silk. The first time she stepped into the lobby months earlier, Naomi had felt like an intruder in someone else's movie. Now she knew where the best vending machine snacks were, which conference room had the softest chairs, and exactly how many steps it took from her desk to CEO Adrian Cross's office. She still sometimes had to remind herself that it was real, that this was her job, that she had gone from hiding in the shadows of hospitals to helping design programs that would save babies' lives across the country. Adrian had insisted she join the foundation. He'd found her after she collapsed at one of his tech conferences, overworked and underfed, 6 weeks pregnant and too scared to admit it to anyone, including herself. When she'd opened her eyes in the ER, he'd been there, not as the billionaire whose face lived on magazine covers, but as a widower with haunted eyes. "You were the nurse who stayed with Elise," he'd said quietly, voice breaking. "You held her hand when I couldn't be there. I never forgot your face." He hadn't offered charity. He'd offered work, dignity, a chance to stand on her own 2 feet again. He didn't know then that she was carrying his children. That truth came later. For now, he was simply the man who gave her a corner desk with a view of Central Park, a stack of meaningful projects, and the first safe place she'd known since before Derek Lawson. By day, she immersed herself in grant proposals and program designs with doctors and advocates who spoke her old language. Premature lungs, feeding tubes, skin-to-skin contact. By night, she shuffled back to her noisy walk-up, heated soup on the stove, and tried not to think of the hands that had once wrapped around her wrists and told her she was nothing without him. She kept her past locked away, not out of shame, but out of survival. Derek had long arms, financially, socially, legally. He had turned gossip into a weapon when she left him. Naomi knew his patterns. The more he felt her slipping away, the more dangerous he became, which was why she almost said no when Adrian knocked on the frame of her office door one gray afternoon in November, holding 2 embossed invitations. "You're avoiding my emails," he said mildly. Naomi glanced guiltily at her cluttered inbox. "I'm just behind. The Chicago NICU project." "Naomi," his tone softened. "You saw the invitation." She had. The Cross Life Winter Benefit Gala, black tie, the Rivercrest Hotel ballroom, a night of champagne and speeches and donors with last names that appeared on the sides of buildings. "I'm not exactly gala material," she said lightly. "I own one dress that isn't wrinkled, and it's optimistic on the zipper." His lips curved. "Then we'll buy another dress." "That's not the point." "I know." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "The point is that you've been hiding in fluorescent hallways and side entrances for years, doing the work and letting everyone else take the credit. This gala, it's about the programs you helped design. I want you there. Adrian, those rooms," she swallowed, "those are the kind of rooms Derek loves." "I know that too," he said quietly, "and I wouldn't be asking if I couldn't promise you this. You won't be alone there." Not for a single second. Something in his voice, steady, sure, slid past her defenses. Naomi hesitated, hand resting unconsciously over her stomach. 3 tiny lives, still secret under her ribs, fluttered like distant wings. Finally, she nodded. "One night," she said. "Then I go back to my quiet corner." His eyes warmed. "One night," he agreed. "And Naomi?" "Yes? You don't belong in corners." The night of the gala, Manhattan glittered. The Rivercrest Hotel's grand ballroom had been transformed into a golden sea of light. Chandeliers spilled crystal rainbows across marble floors. Waiters in white jackets floated through the crowd with trays of champagne. A live band played something soft and expensive in the corner. Naomi stood just inside the doorway, fingers pressed to the fabric of the midnight blue dress Adrian's assistant had helped her choose. It wasn't designer, but it fit perfectly, skimming over the slight swell of her abdomen. The sleeves hid the thinness of her arms. A simple silver necklace rested at her collarbone, her one indulgence bought after her first cross-life paycheck. "You look—" Adrian appeared at her side, momentarily speechless. She flushed. "Like I'm about to trip in these heels?" "Like the most grounded person in this room," he said. "Come on, there's a senator I want you to meet, and 3 neonatologists who think you're a legend." He stayed close, just as he'd promised. When conversation swelled too loud around her, he angled his body so she had space. When donors asked technical questions, he deferred to her expertise, letting her speak. When she faltered, he slid in smoothly, never overshadowing, only steadying. More than once, Naomi caught him watching her as she moved through the ballroom, while she checked seating charts, while she explained a new neonatal transport program, while she laughed with a group of nurses from Queens. His gaze held something that made her chest go tight. Hope, admiration, maybe even something gentler, deeper. She wasn't ready to name it. For nearly an hour, everything held. The night felt possible, not perfect, but not terrifying. Then the doors opened. The air in the ballroom seemed to shift. Conversations thinned. Even the band faltered for half a beat. Derek Lawson stepped inside like a storm in a tailored tux. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his jaw clean-shaven, his tie exactly centered. But there was something wild in his eyes, a predator's focus. He scanned the room once, twice, and locked onto her in under 5 seconds. Naomi's hand went numb around her champagne flute. The room tilted. "You okay?" Adrian murmured. She couldn't answer. The tray in her hand trembled. Her breath came shallow and sharp. Derek smiled. That same charming, polished smile he'd used at the charity gala years ago, when she'd been refilling water glasses, and he'd told her she had kind eyes. The smile that had once felt like rescue and later felt like a cage. "Good evening, sweetheart," he said loudly as he approached, voice smooth enough to make nearby guests turn. "Didn't expect to see you in a place like this." Her stomach dropped. "You don't belong here, Derek. Please leave." He took another step, invading her space with the entitled ease of a man who assumed the world would always make room. "Relax," he murmured, lowering his voice. "I just came to talk. You've been ignoring my calls. That's not very wifely of you. We're divorced." Her voice came out thin. "To you, maybe." He turned his head slightly, projecting his next words so they carried. "To the people who matter? You'll always be Naomi Lawson, my wife, the one who lost control a few months ago and disappeared. People worry, you know. Cameras, phones, press, bloggers, tilted toward them like flowers toward the sun." Naomi tried to step around him. He caught her wrist, not hard, but with the confident pressure of a man who believed no one would dare interfere in public. Someone did. Adrian's presence hit the crowd like a shift in gravity. He crossed the ballroom so quickly conversations snapped shut in his wake. The donors closest to Naomi backed up instinctively, as if curtains were being drawn on a stage. He positioned himself half a step in front of her, not blocking, but shielding. "Let go of her," Adrian said calmly. Derek laughed, loud and incredulous. "You the boyfriend, or just another checkbook she's latched onto?" A ripple of sound went through the room. Adrian didn't raise his voice. "Last warning, Derek. Take your hand off her and leave, or I'll consider you a security breach and have you escorted out." Derek turned to the nearest camera, smile sharpening. I'm here because I'm worried about my wife. She's unstable. She's been lying to everyone in this room. The word dropped like a stone into water. Unstable. Naomi's hands went cold. It was the same script he'd used before, the one he'd whispered into donor circles and hospital admin offices until doors closed in her face. She shouldn't be working, Derek continued, eyes gleaming. She needs help. Naomi's vision blurred. She could feel eyes on her, judging, assessing, clutching their pearls over the spectacle. Her chest tightened painfully. Before she could move, before Adrian could pull her away, Derek leaned close enough that only she could hear. You really thought you could hide this from me? He whispered. His gaze flicked almost lazily to her midsection. You're carrying secrets, Naomi. 3 of them. And soon they'll be public. Her heart stopped. He knew. Adrian saw her face drain of color, and something inside him snapped. The calm, polished CEO's shell cracked, revealing steel beneath. He stepped forward, fully blocking Derek from her view, voice low enough to be dangerous. You've said enough. Leave now, or the next headline won't be about Naomi. It'll be about you. Derek smirked, backing away half a step. We'll see. He turned as if to go, but the damage was done. The whispers spread like smoke through dry brush. Naomi didn't remember how she made it to the restroom. One moment she was under crystal chandeliers. The next she was gripping the marble countertop, gasping, staring at a stranger in the mirror, pale skin, trembling lips, eyes glossy with terror. Not again. Please, not again. Her hands shook so violently she had to brace them against the sink. Her chest hitched in small, panicked sobs. A soft knock broke through the echo of music and murmurs outside. Naomi, Adrian's voice, low but urgent. Let me in. She didn't answer. She couldn't. The door opened slowly anyway, hinges whispering. He stepped inside, closing it behind him, as if afraid to let the world leak in. The sight of her, curled inward, shoulders shaking, mascara streaked, punched the air from his lungs. He crossed the room, then forced himself to stop a few feet away, giving her space. Breathe, he said gently. Just breathe. I can't. The words tore out of her. He always finds me. He ruins everything. I can't do this again, Adrian. I can't survive him again. He sank to the tiled floor opposite her. Expensive tuxedo be damned, until they were eye level. You did survive him, he said quietly. Every day you woke up without him was survival. Tonight doesn't erase that. Her throat burned. She dug her nails into her knees. You don't understand. He doesn't stop. He'll twist the story. He'll make me look insane. I don't need to understand him, Adrian cut in. I understand you. His voice softened. Naomi, look at me. She lifted her head reluctantly. You didn't do anything wrong tonight, he said. He did, and I'm not going to let him keep taking pieces of you. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to, but the fear was bone deep. You have no idea what he's capable of. Then tell me, Adrian said, so I can be ready. Silence stretched. The music outside swelled faintly. I'm pregnant, she whispered. His breath stopped. For a second, he didn't move, didn't blink. The entire ballroom, the city, the world outside the bathroom door seemed to recede. How far? His voice came out rough. 23 weeks, she said. Triplets. His hand went to his mouth. And you were carrying that alone. I didn't want to drag you into my mess, she said hoarsely. You have your company, your board, your IPO. You don't need... I need you alive, he said, the words ripping out of him before he could soften them. She stared at him, stunned. I need you alive, he repeated, quieter now. And I need them alive. All 3. Whatever else happens, that's the line for me. A tremor ran through her. Derek will destroy you, she whispered. He'll use the babies, the rumors, everything. He always wins. Not this time, Adrian said. And there was something in his eyes Derek could never manufacture. Conviction without ego, determination without malice. He extended his hand, palm up. An offer, not a demand. Let me help you, he said. Let me protect you. You don't have to hide from me. For a long moment, Naomi sat frozen on the cold tile, breath ragged, heart warring with history. Every instinct told her to shrink, to disappear, to manage alone. Then a tiny flutter under her hand reminded her she wasn't alone, even when she wanted to be. She placed her fingers in his. This time, she didn't pull away. And in that fluorescent-lit bathroom, between the gala's golden glamour and the ghosts of her past, Naomi made a decision she didn't fully understand yet. She was done running. Whatever storm Derek brought next, she would not face it alone. Adrian would make sure of that. And somewhere, watching from a dark corner of the internet, Derek Lawson saw a grainy photo of Adrian Cross leading his ex-wife gently out of the Rivercrest ballroom, and something inside him twisted from jealousy into obsession. The war he'd just declared in public was nothing compared to the one he was about to wage in private. The morning after the gala, Manhattan woke up to headlines. Billionaire Cross defends unstable ex-wife of financier at gala inside the whisper war between CEO Adrian Cross and Derek Lawson, mystery woman at the Rivercrest. Who is Naomi Hart? Screenshots of Derek's performance, his public concern, his dramatic, "My wife is unstable" line, circulated through gossip blogs and business columns. Some commentators framed him as a devoted ex trying to save a fragile woman. Others called it a PR stunt. Only one person saw the story for what it really was, the opening act of a calculated campaign. Naomi lay on her narrow bed, phone buzzing nonstop on the nightstand, missed calls from unknown numbers, texts from coworkers asking if she was okay. A voicemail from a reporter looking to tell her side. She didn't answer any of them. She lay very still, one hand over her belly, whispering to the three lives inside her. "Hold on," she murmured. "Please, just hold on." A sharp knock at the door made her flinch. Her first thought was a whisper of terror. "Derek." Then a voice came through, deep and steady. "Naomi, it's me. Adrian." Relief hit so hard her knees nearly gave out when she opened the door. He stood in the hallway, still in last night's suit. Tie loosened, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. In one hand he held a paper bag that smelled like fresh bread. In the other, a small cream envelope. "I brought food," he said. "And something else." She stepped aside to let him in. The apartment suddenly felt embarrassingly small, the peeling paint and wobbly table stark against his tailored frame. But he walked in as if he were entering a boardroom he'd chosen himself. "What do you want to talk about first?" she asked, voice thin. "The part where I destroyed your gala, or the part where your name is now attached to my mess on every tabloid site in the city?" "Neither," he said. "Sit down." He unpacked the bag, still warm croissants, scrambled eggs in a compostable container, 2 coffees. He pushed one toward her. Then he held out the envelope. "My wife wrote this," he said quietly, "before she died." Naomi's breath caught. "Elise?" He nodded. "She wrote 3 letters, one to me, one to her sister, and one to the nurse with the steady hands and the gentle voice who stayed with her at night." Naomi's throat closed. "She didn't even know my name." "She knew what mattered," he said. "The letter sat in a sealed file until last week. A NICU admin tracked you down when she saw your name in the news after the gala. She sent it to my office. I read the outside. I didn't open it. I thought it wasn't my letter to read." He placed it on the table between them. Naomi stared at it, heart hammering. The handwriting on the front was slightly shaky, slanted, undeniably human. "To the nurse who held my hand." "Why are you giving this to me now?" she whispered. "Because last night I saw something in your face," Adrian said. "When you told me about the babies, I saw fear where there should have been at least a flicker of joy. And I realized you don't believe you deserve a future. You think Derek destroyed that right." He swallowed. Elise didn't believe that. With trembling fingers, Naomi opened the envelope. The paper inside was thin, edges slightly yellowed. She unfolded it carefully, eyes scanning the first lines. "Dear nurse, if you're reading this, I'm gone." Naomi's vision blurred. She forced herself to keep going. "I don't know your name, but I know your presence. You were the one who spoke softly when everyone else rushed. The one who treated me like Elise, not the case in 408. The one who held my hand when the pain got bad and when my husband looked like he was shattering. Please know this. You mattered. You were a stranger who gave us dignity in our weakest moments. I don't know what your life looks like, but I know my husband. He is strong and kind and stubborn. When I'm gone, he will try to lock his heart in a vault and throw away the key. Don't let him. My husband deserves a chance to love again. He deserves someone who sees him on the days the world only sees his title. And when I listened to you talking to the babies in the NICU, I thought, whoever she loves one day will be very lucky. So if someday your paths cross again, and if you feel something, please don't be afraid to let him in. You have a steadiness he needs. He has a loyalty you deserve. With gratitude, Elise crossed Naomi, pressed a shaking hand to her mouth. Tears blurred the last lines. She wrote this. About me? She whispered. Adrian's gaze was unsteady. She didn't know your name, but she knew you mattered. Naomi looked up, overwhelmed. Why show me this now? It feels too big. Because Derek wants you to believe every good thing in your life is a mistake, Adrian said. An accident, an illusion he can take away whenever he feels like it. He gestured to the letter. This is proof he's wrong. You mattered long before he ever knew your name. To me, to Elise, to families you don't even remember. Naomi stared at the words again. My husband deserves a chance to love again. Don't let him lock his heart away. Her fingers trembled. I don't know what to do with this, she admitted. You don't have to decide today what we are, Adrian said. You only have to decide one thing. What? That you're not going to let Derek tell your story anymore. Her phone buzzed on the table. An unknown number. She almost ignored it, then saw the preview. Naomi, this isn't over. You made me look crazy. I'll fix it. Her stomach lurched. Adrian saw the message, jaw tightening. It's starting, he said quietly. He's not going to retreat. He's going to escalate. How? She whispered. What else can he possibly do? Exactly what he did before, Adrian said. Turn fear into paperwork. He was right. While Naomi tried to breathe through waves of nausea and panic, Derek Lawson sat in a polished office on the Upper East Side, across from a lawyer with a reputation for creative strategies. She disappeared for months, Derek said smoothly. Her behavior was erratic long before that. And now she's working for a billionaire who's clearly exploiting her trauma. I just want to make sure the babies are safe. The lawyer steepled his fingers. You're sure she's pregnant? I have medical reports, Derek said, sliding a file across the desk. Stolen ultrasound notes and appointment summaries, bought via a back-channel contact in hospital IT. Triplets. High risk. She's too unstable to handle something like that alone. We can file an emergency petition, the lawyer mused. Request temporary medical conservatorship. If we convince a judge she's a danger to herself or the fetuses. I get legal control, Derek finished. Over her care. Over the babies. Over everything. He smiled, slow and satisfied. And if the court sees Adrian Cross as the manipulative billionaire taking advantage of a mentally unwell ex-wife, he added, well, that doesn't hurt either. Back on Park Avenue, Adrian moved faster. Within hours, he had Cross Life's legal team assembled in a conference room, along with one additional person he'd personally requested. Olivia Crane, a civil rights attorney whose reputation in New York legal circles hovered somewhere between guardian angel and hurricane in a Navy suit. She listened quietly as he and Naomi laid everything out, the history of Derek's control, the rumors after the divorce, the forced clinic visit, the stalking, the gala. When they finished, she looked at Naomi for a long moment. You've been through hell, Olivia said softly, and you've survived by staying quiet, by making yourself small. Naomi nodded, throat tight. Olivia tapped her pen against the legal pad. You need to understand something important. Men like Derek don't just fear police or lawsuits. They fear exposure. They control the narrative because it's their power source. She leaned forward. You have two choices. We can fight him quietly in court, piece by piece, while he leaks half-truths to the press and undermines you behind closed doors. Or, Naomi whispered. Or we get ahead of him, Olivia said. You take the microphone. You tell your story first. We go public on your terms with your receipts. We turn his favorite weapon, public opinion, into your shield. Naomi's stomach flipped. You want me to, speak? On camera? Not as a spectacle, Olivia said. As a survivor. as a mother protecting her children. You'd be surprised how many people have been through something like this, Naomi. They recognize the pattern. Adrian's gaze was steady. You wouldn't be alone, he said. The foundation can host the event under the banner of maternal health and legal protection. We invite the press, donors, advocates. If Derek wants a stage, we give him one. Except this time, you're not alone on it. The idea terrified her. It also made something spark in her chest that felt a lot like anger. I've spent years hiding, she said slowly, changing jobs, changing neighborhoods, ducking into side streets when I thought I saw him. She remembered Elise's letter. You have a steadiness he needs. You mattered. Naomi lifted her chin. If I do this, she said, voice shaking but clear, I'm not doing it as Derek's ex-wife. I'm doing it as Naomi Hart, as a nurse, as a mother, as a woman who's tired of being rewritten. Olivia's mouth curved. Good, then let's get to work. 3 days later, Naomi stood behind a podium at a riverfront cafe overlooking the Brooklyn Bridge. Banks of cameras pointed at her like a forest of mechanical eyes. Her palms were damp. Her heart pounded. Adrian stood a half step to her right, close enough that she could feel his presence even when she wasn't looking at him. Olivia waited off to the side with a folder thick with documents. Miss Hart, a reporter called, is it true your ex-husband claims you're mentally unstable? Are you exploiting the Cross-Life Foundation to salvage your image? Another shouted. Why did you disappear for months? A third chimed in. Were you hospitalized? The questions hit like hail. Naomi closed her eyes for 1 second, feeling the weight of Elise's letter in her purse, of Adrian's hand at the small of her back, of 3 fragile heartbeats beneath her ribs. Then she leaned into the microphone. My name is Naomi Hart, she said. Her voice trembled at first, but it carried. For years, I stayed quiet because I was ashamed, because I thought my story made me weak. Today I'm speaking because silence is the thing that almost killed me. The room stilled. I was married to Derek Lawson for 8 years, she continued. Behind closed doors, he controlled my finances, isolated me from friends, interfered with my medical decisions, and spread rumors about my mental health. When I finally found the courage to leave, she swallowed. Cameras clicked like distant thunder. I lost job offers I never got to interview for. Landlords turned me away. Donors stopped returning my calls. I believed it was my fault. She lifted her head. It wasn't. Her voice steadied as she went on, not into every gritty detail, but enough to draw the pattern clearly. Control, smear campaigns, forced procedures. The night she left with nothing but a backpack and a pair of shoes that didn't fit. I am not unstable, Naomi said, and something inside her cracked open, not in breaking, but in release. I am a survivor, and I'm pregnant with triplets. I'm standing here today because I want my children to know I fought for them with everything I had. A ripple ran through the room. Before anyone could react, a familiar voice cut through the air like a blade. Well, isn't this heartwarming? Every camera swung toward the doorway. Derek Lawson stood there, immaculate in a charcoal suit, flanked by 2 men in expensive ties who practically radiated lawyer. He smiled for the cameras like a seasoned politician. You forgot the most important part, Naomi, he said, striding forward. Tell them who got you pregnant. Gasps. The air crackled. Naomi's knees wobbled. Adrian stepped between them on instinct, blocking Derek's path. You're not welcome here, he said evenly. Oh, relax. Derek's eyes gleamed. The public has a right to know whether the head of Cross-Life is playing house with a woman who disappeared for months and reappeared pregnant with his miracle triplets. He made air quotes around miracle. Go ahead, Derek said. Tell them it's the CEO's babies. Or should I? Naomi's throat closed. Shame and panic tried to crash over her like a wave. Then she saw something in Adrian's face. Not fear, not panic. Anger, yes, but leashed. And behind it, trust. You're not facing him alone anymore. She stepped out from behind Adrian, legs shaking but head high. Yes, she said, and her voice didn't break. Adrian is the father. The room exploded. Questions flew. Cameras flashed. But that doesn't change anything about what Derek did to me, she continued louder now. It doesn't change the fact that he tried to control my medical choices, that he spread lies about my mental health, and that he's currently attempting to use the court system to force conservatorship over a pregnancy that is none of his business. Olivia stepped into the light, raising a hand. Ms. Hart is telling the truth, she said, and we have proof. She opened her folder and began to lay out, bullet by bullet, the evidence they'd gathered. Forged notes, unauthorized access to Naomi's medical chart, payments to a courthouse clerk, texts to a hospital employee threatening their job if they didn't cooperate. Reporters scribbled furiously. Some looked openly horrified. Derek's smile thinned. "You're twisting things," he snapped. "I was trying to protect her. She's been having episodes. Ask anyone." "We did," Olivia said. "We interviewed colleagues, neighbors, former supervisors. You know what they said? That Naomi is calm under pressure, reliable and meticulous. The only one who's repeatedly described her as unstable is you." Her gaze sharpened. "Funny how that works." A murmur of agreement moved through the room. Derek's mask slipped for a heartbeat. Something ugly flashed in his eyes. "You think this little show saves you?" he hissed at Naomi. "You think he'll stick around once this gets messy?" He jabbed a finger toward Adrian. "Men like him don't cling to broken toys." Adrian didn't flinch. "Men like me," he said quietly, "don't throw away people we love because they stop being convenient." Derek scoffed, but his smirk wasn't as confident now. "You can't rewrite what she is." "No," Adrian said, "but we can finally tell the truth about what you are." Later, Naomi wouldn't remember the exact words Olivia used. Fraud, harassment, malicious petition. She wouldn't remember the faces of every reporter or the precise phrasing of their follow-up questions. She would remember one thing. For the first time since she left Derek, she didn't feel like the one on trial. He did. She would also remember the message she received that night after the press conference, right after Adrian insisted on driving her home and walking her to her door. It came from an unknown number, short, menacing. "You shouldn't have embarrassed me." This was your last warning. When she unlocked her apartment, the welcome mat was crooked. She'd left it straight. Her heart stopped. "Adrian," she whispered, grabbing his arm. "Something's wrong." He pushed the door open carefully. Everything looked intact. Nothing shattered, nothing stolen. But every drawer gaped open. Every cabinet door hung ajar. Every framed photo, her nursing school graduation, a blurry snapshot with a NICU baby's family, a picture of Central Park in autumn, lay face down. Naomi's knees buckled. Adrian caught her before she hit the floor. "He was here," she choked. "He touched everything." "This was a message," Adrian said tightly. "Not a robbery, a violation." Within hours, Olivia had arrived with 2 private security agents. She walked through the apartment like a detective at a crime scene. "He's escalating," she said. "This isn't about stuff. It's about control. He wants you to feel like there's nowhere he can't reach." Naomi wrapped her arms around herself, shivering. "He's right," she whispered. "He always finds me." "Not anymore," Adrian said. His voice left no room for argument. "You're not spending another night here," he continued. "Pack what you need. Clothes, documents, anything important. You're moving into my building until this is over. Full security, cameras, a doorman who'd rather die than let a stranger pass the desk." "Adrian, I can't." "This isn't about comfort," he said gently. "It's about safety. Yours and the baby's. Please, Naomi, let me protect you." No one had ever said protect without meaning control. She looked at the drawers, the upended life, the invisible fingerprints. She thought of 3 flickering heartbeats. She nodded. 24 hours later, Naomi stood in the private elevator of the Sterling Residences, one of the most secure buildings in the city, watching the numbers climb toward the top floor. Adrian's penthouse opened directly off the elevator into a wide living room of glass and light. The city spread out like a map beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Hot cocoa waited on the coffee table. A guest room had been made up with soft sheets and fresh flowers. A security console blinked quietly in the hallway, showing camera feeds and access logs. It should have felt surreal, stepping into that much luxury after months of counting coins at laundromats. Instead, Naomi felt something else, cornered and safe at the same time, as if the world had narrowed to 2 possibilities: stay where Derek could reach her, or accept a fortress built by a man who had lost someone once and refused to do it again. "Tomorrow," Adrian said that night, standing in the doorway of the guest room as she tucked herself into bed, "we meet with Olivia again. She's filed for a temporary restraining order. The court's appointed a wellness evaluator to review Derek's petition and your situation." "Can another stranger deciding whether I'm sane?" Naomi murmured, exhausted. "This one's different," Adrian said. "Olivia vetted her. She specializes in maternal cases and has a reputation for smelling lies." Naomi nodded, too tired to answer. As she drifted towards sleep, she heard him say softly, "You're not what he says you are. Don't forget that." The next day, the evaluator walked into Naomi's hospital room, because overnight, everything changed. A stolen ultrasound report, a betrayal inside Adrian's own team, baby B's wavering heartbeat, a panicked drive through the rain to St. Augustine Medical Center. Cold gel on Naomi's belly, 3 flickering heartbeats on the screen, 2 strong, 1 struggling. "You're not going home," Dr. O'Malley had said gently. "Not until these babies are on the outside. You need full monitoring. Any stress can make baby B's condition worse." Stress, as if she could simply opt out. By the time the evaluator arrived that evening, Naomi lay in a private room that looked more like a boutique hotel suite than a ward, IV line in her arm, fetal monitors blinking softly beside her bed. The woman who stepped inside wore a gray suit and carried a worn leather bag. Her hair was pulled back, a streak of silver at her temple. Her eyes were calm in a way Naomi recognized, the look of someone who'd seen people at their worst and chosen not to flinch. "Ms. Hart," she said, closing the door quietly behind her. "My name is Dr. Mina Hargrove. I'm here to conduct an independent wellness evaluation on behalf of the court." Naomi's stomach nodded. "I know what you've been told that means," Dr. Hargrove said, "and I'd like to correct it." She pulled a chair closer to the bed, settling in without opening her folder yet. "8 years ago," she said softly, "my sister gave birth at St. Augustine. Severe preeclampsia, premature baby, NICU stay." She was terrified. She still talks about the nurse who stayed past her shift to read to the baby at night. The one who held her hand when the monitors beeped, and the world felt like it was collapsing. Naomi blinked, confused. "She never caught your last name," Dr. Hargrove continued. "She just called you the steady one." Something hot and fragile pressed behind Naomi's eyes. "I saw your name on Derek Lawson's petition," the evaluator said, "and I didn't see a hysterical, unstable woman. I saw the person who carried my family through the worst weeks of our lives." Her voice hardened. "I've already reviewed your real medical records today, the ones Derek didn't tamper with. I've documented his attempts to manipulate the system. He may think this evaluation is his weapon." She shook her head. "He's wrong." Naomi exhaled, a long, shaking breath she felt she'd been holding for years. "Does that mean he can't have me committed?" she whispered. "It means the court will see his petition for what it is. Malicious and self-serving," Dr. Hargrove said. "But he's not done trying. He's downstairs right now, arguing with security about his right to be on this floor." As if on cue, raised voices echoed faintly down the hall. Adrian appeared in the doorway, face tight. Behind him, Olivia and Security Chief Danvers conferred in low, urgent voices. "He's demanding access to your room," Adrian said, shouting to reporters that we're hiding you, telling anyone who'll listen that you're a danger to yourself and the babies. Naomi's pulse spiked. The monitors flickered in response. "Hey," Adrian said quickly, crossing to her side. "Look at me, not the door. Me." She forced her gaze to his. "No one is putting you in a psychiatric facility," he said, the words edged with steel. "No one is taking these babies out of your hands without your consent. Not while I'm breathing." It should have sounded like a promise he couldn't guarantee. It felt like a line drawn in the ground. The storm was gathering, and somewhere in that hospital, Derek Lawson palmed a sheaf of legal papers, rehearsing the speech he'd give as he burst through the doors. "My ex-wife is unstable. She needs intervention. I'm here to save her." He just didn't know that the next time he stormed into a hospital angry, he wouldn't be the one deciding what the story was. He'd be the one forced to watch as his ex-wife brought 3 new lives into the world with a man he could never control. The rain came back the night everything collided, It hammered against the glass walls of St. Augustine Medical Center, turning the city into a blur of headlights and reflections. Inside the high-risk maternity unit, the air carried the sharp scent of antiseptic and something else. Fear stretched thin over hope. Naomi lay propped on pillows, monitors tracing three fragile rhythms. Baby A, strong. Baby C, steady. Baby B, a jagged line that made every nurse's shoulders tense. Dr. O'Malley checked the printouts again, lips pressed into a firm line. "We're holding," she said, "but barely. Any significant stress could push baby B into distress. We want to buy as many days as we can, but you need to be prepared, Naomi. If that heartbeat drops too low, we don't wait. We go in." "Emergency C-section," Naomi whispered. "Yes." The doctor's voice softened. "They're early, but viability is good. The NICU is ready. We're watching you minute by minute." Naomi nodded, throat tight. "Do what you have to." When the doctor left, the room felt too quiet. The distant beeps and hallway footsteps pressed at the edges of her mind. Adrian sat in the visitor chair, elbows on his knees, fingers laced together so tightly his knuckles were white. He hadn't left the hospital in 24 hours. A shadow of stubble darkened his jaw. His tie was gone. His shirt sleeves were rolled, revealing forearms inked faintly with the imprint of countless IV bracelets from nights spent in ICU waiting rooms years ago. "You should sleep," Naomi murmured. He looked up, and the intensity in his eyes stole her breath. "I sleep when you and the kids are home," he said. "Adrian." He stood, moving to her side, one hand wrapping around the guardrail of the bed, the other resting carefully over hers. "I watched someone I love fight for her life in a hospital," he said quietly. "I watched monitors beep and numbers drop, and doctors use words like crash and code. I promised myself if I ever had the chance to be on this side again, with someone I loved lying in a bed and machines humming, I wouldn't leave." He swallowed. "Don't ask me to break that promise." She couldn't. She reached for him with her other hand, weaving their fingers together. "Then stay," she whispered. "But you should know something." His brow furrowed. "What?" "I never believed I'd get this far," she said. "Past Derek, past hiding, past just surviving. So if I look like I'm about to break half the time, it's not because I don't trust you. It's because I don't know how to live any other way yet." His eyes softened. "We'll learn together," he said. "We have time." But time was exactly what the storm outside was determined to steal. On the ground floor, the hospital's sliding doors burst open. Derek Lawson strode in, soaked trench coat flaring, legal envelope clutched in one hand. A news van idled at the curb behind him. Two camera crews stayed politely, barely, outside the hospital threshold, lenses tracking his every move. "I'm here to see my wife," he snapped at the admissions desk, slapping the documents down. "Court-appointed evaluator, emergency petition. I have a right to be with her." The receptionist had been briefed. Her smile was tight. "Sir, Ms. Hart is under medical supervision in a secured unit," she said. "We can't allow visitors without clearance from me," he cut in. "Her husband. You're listed as her ex-spouse, Mr. Lawson." He slammed both palms on the counter. People in the lobby jumped. "I don't care what she listed," he snarled. "I'm the only one who's ever taken care of her. That billionaire upstairs is using her, and your hospital is enabling it. You want a lawsuit when something happens to those babies? Because that's what you'll get if you keep me from them." Security approached, calm but firm. "Mr. Lawson, you need to lower your voice." He held up the envelope like a shield. "I have an emergency petition on file," he said. "Court signed it an hour ago. A wellness evaluator's on site. I have a legal right to be involved in any decisions regarding my ex-wife's care." It was half true. The petition had been filed. The evaluator, Dr. Hargrove, was indeed in the building. But what Derek didn't know was that she'd already flagged his documents as suspected fraudulent and sent an urgent notice to the judge. He had legal paper. He just didn't have the power he thought it gave him. He bullied his way into the elevator anyway. Security forced to ride with him to keep him from storming random floors. On the 6th floor, he stepped out into the maternity ward like a man entering a battlefield. Down the hallway, behind one closed door, Naomi felt it. The fetal monitors hummed, lines dancing. Her blood pressure cuff squeezed her arm again. A nurse checked the readings, nodding. "We're okay for now," she said. "Just keep breathing, Ms. Hart, nice and slow." Naomi tried. She focused on the steady weight of Adrian's hand. Then faintly she heard it. His voice, shouting, arguing with security, insisting, demanding. Her heart rate spiked. The monitors beeped faster. "Hey, hey," Adrian said, eyes snapping to the screen. "Stay with me. Look at me, not the door." He glanced at the nurse. "Get Dr. O'Malley, now." Outside, Derek advanced. "You can't legally keep me from her," he insisted. "I know she's on this floor. If you don't tell me which room, you're obstructing an emergency court order." "You're escalating in a high-risk unit," one of the guards replied. "Back up, Mr. Lawson. Now." He pushed past, shouldering his way down the hall. He tried one door, postpartum recovery. A woman with a sleeping newborn stared at him in shock before a nurse slammed the door shut and barked into her radio. He moved on, hand closing around the next handle. At the far end of the hall, the elevator dinged. Adrian stepped out, Dr. Hargrove and Chief Danvers flanking him. For a heartbeat, rage met ice. "You're not supposed to be on this floor," Adrian said. "You don't get to decide that," Derek sneered, lifting the envelope again. "I brought friends." He gestured toward the camera crew edging past the nurse's station now that they smelled drama. "They're here to document how you and this hospital are keeping a mentally unstable woman isolated from the one person who actually cares about her," Derek said. "How you're coercing her into dangerous procedures." Dr. Hargrove stepped forward. "Mr. Lawson," she said crisply, "I've already filed my preliminary evaluation with the court. Your petition misrepresents Ms. Hart's condition and falsifies key medical notes. If you continue to mischaracterize her status, you'll be adding perjury to the list of charges the DA is considering." He blinked. "You work for the court. I filed the petition. I work for the truth," she said flatly. "Not for you." Naomi's door opened then, and Dr. O'Malley slipped out, eyes flashing. "Whatever circus this is," she said sharply, "it ends now. My patient can hear every word you're shouting. Her heart rate is spiking. Baby B's heartbeat is wobbling. You keep this up, Mr. Lawson, and your performance may force an emergency delivery we were trying to avoid." For the first time, fear flickered behind his arrogance. "If she needs surgery, I have a right to be there," he said. "I'm her family." "Legally, you're not," Olivia said, appearing at Adrian's side with a sheaf of her own papers. "And practically? Family doesn't terrorize a pregnant woman and tamper with her medical records." She lifted a clear plastic evidence sleeve. Inside, a USB drive gleamed. "Hospital security found this in your coat pocket downstairs," she said. "It contains encrypted medical files you had no right to access, along with an audio recording of you threatening a hospital IT tech to help you." Chief Danvers hit play on his phone. Derek's recorded voice filled the hallway. "You do exactly what I say, or your sister loses her job. You hear me? I'll bury her. And that nurse? That pathetic ex-wife? I'll make sure no one believes a word she says. I'll have her declared unfit before the week is over." Staff up and down the corridor froze. Nurses, doctors, patients' families. "Interfering with medical records," Olivia said. "Extortion, harassment, attempted fraud." She glanced at Danvers. "You know what to do." "Mr. Lawson," the chief said, stepping forward, "you're under arrest." It happened fast. One moment Derek was spewing protests. "This is a setup. She's manipulating you. He's buying you." The next, his arms were twisted behind his back, handcuffs clicking into place. He tried to twist free, eyes wild. "Naomi!" he yelled, voice cracking. "Naomi, don't let them do this. He'll leave you. They all leave. You'll come back. You always come back." Inside the room, Naomi heard every word. Her body reacted before her mind did. Her stomach clenched. Her chest seized. The monitors shrieked as Baby B's heartbeat dipped sharply. "Okay, that's it," Dr. O'Malley said. "We're done." "Done?" Naomi gasped. "What?" "We're going to the OR, the doctor said calmly but firmly. "We can't risk Baby B crashing. The stress in this hallway alone is enough to throw 3 fetuses into crisis. We deliver tonight." The words landed like a thunderclap. "Tonight?" Naomi whispered. Adrian's hand found hers, strong and steady. "Tonight, he echoed softly. We meet them tonight. Terror and love crashed together in her chest. What if... Her voice broke. What if they're too small? What if baby B... What if they're stronger than all of us combined? Adrian said. They've held on this long through everything Derek has thrown at you. They're fighters. Wonder where they got that from. Tears blurred her vision. Stay with me, she whispered. Try and make me leave, he said. They wheeled her toward the operating suite under bright lights, past nurses who murmured encouragement and security who watched the hallway like hawks. Through the small glass window of her door, Naomi caught one last glimpse of Derek being hauled toward the elevator, shouting her name like a curse. For the first time, it didn't hook into her. It slid off like water. He was outside the circle now. Inside the OR, cold air wrapped around her. The anesthesiologist spoke in a calm monotone about spinal blocks and numbness. Nurses strapped monitors to her chest, her arms, her belly. Sterile drapes rose between her and the surgical field. Adrian scrubbed in, his hair covered by a disposable cap, his expensive watch replaced by a plastic bracelet. When he stepped to her side, he looked nothing like the billionaire on magazine covers. He looked like a man who'd known hospitals too well and still chose to walk back in. He took her hand in both of his and pressed his forehead to hers. I'm right here, he said. Whatever you feel, whatever you hear, I'm not moving. I'm scared, she whispered. So am I, he admitted. But being scared doesn't mean we're not doing this. It just means it matters. She let the anesthetic warmth creep up her legs, her abdomen, her chest until the sharp edges faded and were replaced by pressure and strange tugging. She stared up at the ceiling lights and then at him. Talk to me, she said. Tell me something that isn't beeping. He smiled, eyes wet. Okay, he said. Remember that letter? Elise's? Her voice shook. She always wanted 3 kids, he said. We tried. We lost. It broke us. I thought that chapter of my life was over. And then you walked back into it, completely unaware that she'd written your presence into our story years ago. He squeezed her fingers. She told me not to close myself off. Told you not to be afraid of me. She said you had steady hands. She was right. You steadied me long before tonight. Now we get to steady these 3 together. That's not an accident. Tears spilled sideways into her hair. Okay, Mom and Dad, Doctor, O'Malley said from beyond the drape, voice firm but warm. Here we go. Baby A is ready to make an appearance. Pressure, tugging, a strange hollowing sensation. Then a cry. Thin, furious, beautiful. Naomi sobbed. Baby A, someone announced. Boy, strong cry, good tone. A tiny swaddled form was lifted briefly into her line of sight. Red, wrinkled, perfect, before he was whisked to the NICU team. Baby C's next, the doctor said. More pressure. Another cry, slightly weaker, but there. Baby C girl, breathing with some effort. We've got her. Naomi's heart soared and seized at once. Baby B, she whispered. Please, please. The room seemed to hold its breath. There was more tugging now, more urgency in the murmured instructions. A long silence. Too long. Come on, Adrian whispered. Come on, little one. You fought this hard. Then, a sound. Faint at first, like the mew of a newborn kitten, then stronger, building into a wobbling wail. The entire OR exhaled. Baby B, the doctor said, relief thick. Girl, smaller. Heart struggling but responsive. We're starting interventions now. Naomi's vision blurred completely. She's here, Adrian said, voice breaking. They're all here. He kissed her forehead again and again, whispering thank yous to God, to luck, to stubborn baby hearts and the sheer miracle of medicine. Through the blur of tears, Naomi turned her face to the side. Outside the small window in the OR doors, she saw a cluster of people in the hallway. Hospital staff, a few reporters, security, Olivia, Dr. Hargrove. And farther back, half hidden by a pillar, Derek stood between 2 officers, handcuffed, his face pale and slack. He was watching. He saw the drapes, the surgical lights, the flash of 3 tiny forms being rushed past the window toward the NICU. He saw Adrian in scrubs, bending over Naomi like she was the only person in the world. In that moment, whatever illusion Derek had maintained shattered. The woman he'd once treated as a possession, a convenient accessory to his career and ego, was lying on an operating table bringing 3 new lives into the world, none of them his. And the man at her side, the man she chose, was a CEO Derek could never outspend, outmaneuver, or intimidate. For the first time, Derek Lawson didn't lunge, didn't shout, didn't threaten. He froze. The storm inside him had nowhere left to go. Within days, the DA filed formal charges: fraud, extortion, harassment, attempted interference with medical care, unauthorized access to confidential records. Olivia's evidence was meticulous. Dr. Hargrove's report was damning. The recording from the hallway sealed it. Derek's lawyers advised him to take a plea. He went to trial anyway. He lost. Naomi didn't attend the sentencing. She spent that day in the NICU instead, fingers resting inside 3 incubators, one at a time, touching one tiny foot, one tiny hand, one impossibly small chest that rose and fell with the help of machines. Baby A, Liam, gained weight first, graduating from tubes to bottles. Baby C, Maya, liked to kick at her blankets, monitors chiming cheerfully as she practiced being difficult. Baby B, Elise, fought the hardest fight. There were nights when her heart decelerated and alarms shrieked. Nights when Naomi sat in a rocking chair, kangaroo care sling against her skin, whispering stories and prayers into downy hair, while Adrian slept in fits on a vinyl couch. But slowly, relentlessly, Elise's line on the heart monitor smoothed. Her weight crept up in grams, her cheeks rounded. One day she pulled out her own feeding tube and screamed until someone fed her. "That's my girl," Naomi murmured, laughing through tears. "Stubborn just like your namesake." 3 months after the stormy night in the OR, the Crosshart family walked, or in the baby's case, were carried, out of St. Augustine. Naomi paused on the sidewalk, inhaling cold, crisp air that didn't smell like antiseptic or recycled HVAC. She looked down at the 3 car seats arranged in a row. Liam, squinting. Maya, already trying to wiggle free of her straps. Elise, tiny but fierce, fingers curled around the edge of her blanket. Adrian slid an arm around Naomi's waist. "We did it," he said softly. "No," she corrected, leaning into him. "They did it. We just stayed out of the way and panicked quietly in corners." He huffed out a shaky laugh. They drove home, not to a hiding place, but to Adrian's building, where a nursery waited, painted in soft colors with 3 cribs lined up like promises. Life after that wasn't suddenly easy. There were sleepless nights and medical follow-ups and moments when Naomi's trauma flared at small triggers. A slammed door, a raised voice on TV, a bill in the mail. There were days when Adrian wrestled with guilt over feeling joy in a life that once belonged to Elise. They went to therapy, separately at first, then sometimes together, learning how to build something new without erasing what came before. Months passed. The babies grew. One spring evening, when the city outside glowed soft and pink, Naomi came home from a follow-up appointment to find the living room dimmed and the chaos of baby toys corralled into a neat corner. Candles flickered on the dining table. 3 high chairs stood in a row, each occupied by a chubby-cheeked co-conspirator smearing applesauce. "What's this?" she asked warily, shrugging off her coat. "An experiment," Adrian said, emerging from the kitchen in a button-down, with the sleeves rolled just so, "to see whether 3 under-1-year-olds can keep a secret." "They can't," Naomi said. "They tell on themselves every 30 seconds. "Good," he said, coming to stand in front of her. "Then I don't have to pretend they're not watching." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Her heart lurched. "Adrian, don't panic yet," he said, smiling. "Just listen." He opened the box. The ring inside wasn't ostentatious. A thin band, a single diamond, simple and clear. "I'm not asking this because of the babies," he said quietly, "or because I think marriage will fix either of us. I'm asking because somewhere between that conference where you passed out on me and the night we counted 3 heartbeats on a screen, you became the center of my life." He took her hand, his thumb trembling over her knuckles. "I've seen you brave storms that would have broken me," he continued. "I've watched you learn to breathe again, to speak again, to trust again. I want to spend whatever years I have left learning how to give you a life that feels like safety, not survival." Her eyes burned. Naomi Hart, he said, voice thick. Will you marry me? She looked at him, at the man who'd sat on hospital floors and NICU chairs, who'd held her while she shook, who'd turned down media interviews and pushed away gossip to give her space to heal, who'd loved her without demanding she forget the woman she'd been before. She looked past him at three small faces, wide-eyed and sticky. She thought of Derek, of rain-soaked driveways and upended drawers and legal threats. She thought of herself, curled on a bathroom floor at a gala, convinced she was cursed. Then she thought of something else, the version of herself who'd stood at a microphone and said, "I am not unstable. I am a survivor." She smiled through tears. "Yes," she said. "Of course, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into a kiss that tasted like salt and relief and beginnings. Behind them, one of the babies squealed. Another banged a spoon. The third promptly spat applesauce onto the high chair tray. Perfect. Later that night, after the chaos had been cleaned up and the babies lay sleeping in their cribs, Naomi stood by the window overlooking the city. Rain streaked the glass again, but it felt different now, softer, cleansing instead of threatening. Adrian slipped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Do you ever think about him?" he asked quietly. She knew who he meant. "Sometimes," she said honestly. "Not because I miss him, because I miss the version of me who believed his lies. I wish I could go back and tell her she'd survive." "You did," Adrian murmured. "Every time you chose to get up, every time you chose to keep going, you were leaving breadcrumbs for the woman you are now." She leaned back into him. "Do you ever think about Elise?" she asked. "Every day," he said, "but it doesn't hurt the way it used to. It feels like," he smiled faintly, "like she handed me a torch and said, 'Don't waste this. Find the person who steadied you when I couldn't.'" Naomi glanced down at her hand, at the ring glinting softly in the dim light. "She had annoyingly good instincts," she said. He laughed quietly. Outside, a siren wailed and faded. Inside, three tiny chests rose and fell in steady rhythm. Machines were replaced by baby monitors. Panic by plans. Naomi realized then that Derek had never truly broken her. He'd only taught her how strong she could be when she decided she was done being defined by someone else's fear. The day he stormed into the hospital, waving papers and shouting her name, convinced he could still rewrite her life, was the day the world watched him freeze. Because for the first time, he saw the truth. She wasn't choosing him. She was choosing herself. And in choosing herself, she chose a future where her children would grow up in a home built on love, not control. A future where storms might come, but she would never face them alone again. So if you're still here with me at this point, my friend, maybe something in Naomi's journey feels painfully familiar. Maybe you know what it's like to be told you're too much or too broken. Maybe someone tried to weaponize your past, your medical history, your mistakes, and turn them into proof that you don't deserve peace. Let Naomi's story remind you of something simple and powerful. You are not the worst thing someone did to you. You are not the lie they repeated until even you started to believe it. You are the person who survived. Like the philosopher said, the obstacle is the way. The very thing meant to break you might be the thing that shows you how strong you really are. You deserve safety. You deserve a life where love doesn't feel like walking on glass. You deserve to stand in your own story without apologizing for existing. If this story made you feel seen, even a little, don't keep it to yourself. Hit the like button so it reaches someone sitting in their own storm tonight. Share it with a friend who might need to hear that they're not crazy, they're courageous. And subscribe, because we're not done. There are more stories coming, more strength, more hope, more proof that surviving isn't the end, it's the beginning. Thank you for staying with Naomi and with me to the very last page. You are not alone.